Welcome to Pastoring on Purpose, the official podcast of the Center for Ministerial Care. Join us for this meaningful conversation led by Dr. Tim Maness and the Ministerial Care team about intentionally navigating the challenges, burdens, and opportunities facing church leaders and their families. We exist because healthy churches depend on healthy ministers. The Center for Ministerial Care. For ministers, for families, for you.
Welcome to Pastoring on Purpose. Dr. Maness here, along with Jeff and Ryan. Jeff, just say hello to everybody for us.
Hello. It's good to be back at the microphone, and you're looking good for yourself today.
Thank you. I've got my Hawaiian Brave shirt on today.
Yes. Yeah,
I'm
that's a
feeling-
shirt. That's a shirt, sir. You've got a shirt there.
It is loud. It is a little loud, isn't it?
It is, but most Braves fans are.
Well, I don't know about that. So
We can edit that out, can we?
no, I think we keep it.
Okay, so I can say go Dodgers?
No, well,
Okay.
we're glad to be here, and today you're not going to miss this episode. We have with us Brian and the wonderful Kathy Yauns with us. Just to give you a little bit of an introduction for those of you who are not aware of their ministry, they are currently the International Youth and Discipleship Director. Kathy is the International Girls Ministries Coordinator and Director of Lee Online. They have been in ministry together for 35 years.
That's right.
We're going to talk about a little bit of a span of y'all's ministry and where you've been, so I'm going to go over all of that right now. But thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you guys. You're not going to miss this episode. We're going to be talking about their ministry journey. We're going to be talking about youth and what youth may be going through today, what they're seeing, some trends, those kind of things, and their marriage a little bit as well. We'll kind of dive into that as well as as we kind of get into this. So we'll be right back right after this.
The Center for Ministerial Care provides professional counseling services for Church of God ministers and their families free of charge. We're here to help with marital or financial stress, burnout, depression, loneliness, grief, or any challenge that you might be facing. If you're a pastor in the Church of God who could benefit from professional, confidential counseling with a Pentecostal perspective, we want to help. Visit ministerialcare.com for more information.
Welcome back to Pastoring on Purpose, and let's just dive in. 35 years of ministry together, serving in youth ministry, pastoral ministry, and leadership roles, transitioning into international leadership. Let's start with that. How difficult was it to go from pastoring to state work to international work? Were those big transitions, and was there a huge difference between one and the other?
It actually was a surprise. After 10 years of youth ministry, we were seeking God, feeling that internal stirring and not sure what God was going to do next. And the offer came unexpectedly, so to speak. I wasn't pursuing it, but knowing that God was preparing us, I said yes. And so we pastored in Sebring, Florida. After 1 year of pastoral ministry and getting to know the community, bought a brand new home, moved in, and decided at the request of the state youth director to work a third week of camp. And it was at that week of camp that the state bishop just walked in on us at lunch, knelt between us, pulled us in tight, and said, International Youth Department wants you to be a state youth director. What do you say? So I looked across the table at my wife, and she gave me the nonverbal cue, meaning we had settled the issue 10 years prior.
We first went into youth ministry at our very first church, and we don't come from the homes of pastors. My parents got saved later in their lives. Brian was raised by his grandparents, but both raised in the Church of God. We're at our first church in Florida, which is not our home state. I was washing dishes, and I felt the Holy Spirit say to me, "You're going to be state youth directors." And that just blew me away, because that was not even a thought in my mind. I was not even concentrating on anything other than washing dishes. So I really kept that kind of in my heart and in my spirit. And we had just begun to talk about it. I said, "You remember when the Lord did this? I just thought that was so strange." And then all of a sudden, the state overseer kneels down, and we really just looked at each other, because we knew that God had confirmed it at that moment from 10 years before.
Yeah.
So we said yes. Right.
It's amazing how that works. Was that a difficult transition, going from, that to state work?
It was difficult in that Florida had become home for 12 years. All of our ministry colleagues were there. And, of course, your first assignment takes you from South Florida, and 44 hours of driving later, we pull into Phoenix.
Wow.
Over 3.5 days of driving.
My goodness.
We get there, and we know absolutely no one. In fact, we met the state overseer for the first time when we pulled in because he wasn't able to make it to that General Assembly. He sent the council chairman to greet us. Okay. And so a new place, leaving a pastoral ministry where you have daily context and, camaraderie and fellowship with your church members, and all of a sudden you're in a state with about 23 churches. Yeah. None of them know you, and then after you've run the circuit of preaching, you wait a long time before you're invited back to preach again.
Looking back, Arizona was such a special place to us. It's one of our favorite places, and it's kind of like going to your first church. It's always a special thing. But when we did get there, it was a jolt for me because my role suddenly changed.
Okay.
Like I didn't have a role in a mission state. Brian was going to the state office every day. I was at home caring for my kids, getting them to school, and not really having a role. And my phone was not ringing. Like it was pretty lonely. And then we were far out west. So it was something that God was having to walk me through. It was quite a spiritual journey and really kind of allowed me to learn to trust the Lord.
Sure.
And know that this was a season of ministry that was going to be different for me, but that didn't mean that my ministry wasn't vital. That didn't mean that God wasn't prepared to use me right then. So that was a challenge for me.
How long were you all in pastoral ministry?
We were only in ministry 2 years as pastors.
Okay.
12 years as youth pastors.
12 years as youth
in
pastors.
a local church.
Yeah.
Churches.
And that spans over a decade of a certain role, pretty much, that you were involved in. So you make that shift, and all of a sudden the phone's not ringing. And you're there and you're thinking, what do I do? Did that create a certain sense of anxiety, your identity, your calling, all of that?
Yes, all of that. Well, first of all, one of my favorite stories that I recount from that time is I was volunteering at a church that allowed our son to go to school there. And, I graduated from Lee, summa cum laude in my class, English major, and I was helping a student with reading, but my other job was to help during cafeteria duty. And so my job was to push the trash can on wheels around the lunchroom.
Somebody's got to do it.
And they would just toss their milk, jugs in there that they didn't drink, and it would slosh on me. And some of them would say, "Trash lady." And I would just think, really? Is this what I am? I have a degree and I'm not using it right now. And
you're the trash lady now.
But I feel like God wanted me to say yes to whatever he had me doing right then. Yeah. But to your point, whether it caused anxiety, yes, this was the first time in my life that I ever had anxiety. Yeah. I had moments where I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would hear the phone ring, and the phone wasn't ringing, but it would happen night after night, and I would just kind of wake up with this feeling of foreboding and anxiety.
Yeah.
And I think that the loneliness is something that can lead into that, and you have to get a handle on it, and you have to seek the Lord. And I had moments with the Lord where he said, you're walking in bondage. Yeah. And I actually had a vision where I saw the word insecurity on the ceiling one night, and then it was suddenly into 2 words, and it was insecurity. And I've shared this testimony many times, but the Lord asked me, do you want to walk in this? Do you want to walk in insecurity, or do you want to walk in security? And it was really a transformational moment for me, and I really think boosted my confidence in the calling that the Lord had on me. And then eventually the Lord transitioned me to the state office where I was more active in ministry and able to work alongside Brian like we had always worked. Yeah. But that initial separation of our role together was something I really had to navigate. And I think a lot of women go through that.
Sure. Changes correct me if I'm wrong, but even the dynamics within the marriage, right?
Absolutely. In those moments when you're so familiar with your spouse and your relationship feels secure, and then you're witnessing your spouse go through, this trial of insecurity and uncertainty and actually a loss of identity, because what Kathy didn't say was during all of our youth ministry and pastoral ministry, she was heavily involved in the local public school. In fact, when we transitioned to Arizona, she was the department chair of her English department at the high school, and so very connected. And to go to this place of who am I, what is my role as a spouse, as a husband, I'm not really sure how to address that because I've never had to address it before.
Yeah, it was new. It's interesting because we form our identity by what we do oftentimes, and so it's what we produce, right? It's not scriptural, but that's kind of how we live. There's kind of the undercurrent of not just Church of God, but just church culture. How you been doing, what you've been up to, and I've been doing this, and this. And I love the fact that it's like God was using that moment for you to kind of find out this is who you are,
Right.
apart from all
In
of this.
Him.
In
In
Him.
Him.
Right.
So, Kathy and Brian, what you described is basically a defining moment in your ministry, right? Where it required you both to go through significant identity changes,
Right.
huge adjustments. Now, the way you tell it, and I'm not doubting it, all right, but the way you tell it is though you guys were kind of in sync, if not kind of, you were in sync when this decision was brought, you both were in sync already. So what do you attribute it to in your marriage? Because you'd been married 10 years, 12 years?
At the time, we transitioned into state work in 2002.
Yeah.
So from 88 to 2002, 14 years.
14 years. All right. So in 14 years there, help us understand, all right? It sounds like you were in sync, and that's important in ministry, right? What happened over those 14 years to where when this defining moment came into your lives?
I think it started at the very beginning, before marriage. I was an intercultural studies major at Lee, felt like God had a call of missions on my life. I fell in love with Kathy very quickly, knew she was the one. But I remember having a conversation with her, just saying, hey, I don't know what the future holds, but missions is my heart and my calling, and it's definitely going to be full-time ministry. Are you on board with that? Because I hope you are, because I love you. But, God first.
I was on board.
And she was on board. In fact, celebrated our 1-year wedding anniversary in Honduras, where she spent 4 weeks with me and then came back to Cleveland while I stayed 6 more to complete my 10-week practicum. So from the beginning, we were on the same page. But not just us as husband and wife. When our sons were born and we went into this ministry where it was almost like security was no longer there. You're at the mercy of others who have authority over you in the Lord. You're not the lead pastor. People often say, lead pastor is the greatest role because you're the boss. You're in charge. Yeah. So we submitted ourselves to God's plan. And then we find ourselves working as the second person, no longer the first person. And so I'm in submission again to a state overseer. And so in that role, we told our sons, now this is different than pastoral ministry. God put us here, but what you need to know, boys, is that Mom and I trust the Lord to use people over us in the Lord to place us where God wants us. Mm-hmm. So although it may be a man's decision, we are by faith trusting that God is using them to get us where He wants us.
Absolutely.
And I want to interject there when you're talking about our boys. One of my prayers when the Lord first spoke into my spirit that we were going to be state youth directors was, Lord, we'll go, but I'm asking you to take care of our boys, that you would guard their hearts, that you would protect them in the ministry, that they would always have a sensitive heart to the Holy Spirit, and that they would always love and embrace the church, protect them from the things that might hurt their hearts. And the Lord really did that. But when we each time the Lord has moved us, and it's involved our boys and having to tell our boys, and Dr. Sargent knows my oldest well, so he knows the transitions he went through. We would tell them, this is not just for us. God has something for you in this place. God has something specifically for you, and this is a shift in direction, and you may not see it now, but when you get to the other side of it, you're going to look back and say, this was God's hand on my life, and God wanted me here. And they can both testify of that today and tell you exactly why it was that way, but we tried to always reiterate that. That doesn't mean they didn't fall into our arms and say, no, we're moving. That happened. Right. It was heart-wrenching, heartbreaking. But we would always pray, and we would always remind them, this is God's plan for you. It's his plan for our family. And God has been faithful.
What I'm hearing consistently here is that we are called. Began with the two of you. We are called together. Wherever God's leading us, we are being called, not just one of us. And then as you have children, you include them, which you rightfully so, that this is God's plan for us, right? And then this transition, being mindful of the fact, I like that you're mindful of one another and communicating to one another about the transition and what the natural responses that you have to it, both positive and negative. But in addition to that, being mindful of your children as well and including them in the discussions and allowing them space to say, I'm not happy with this, right? And some parents, that question or allowing that space intentionally could be uncomfortable. But also what's even more uncomfortable is the response from the child if it's not on board or positive, right? Like, no, I don't want to move to Arizona. No.
Right.
And then what do you do then? But evidently you
weeping.
You have,
and then
collapsing.
I don't want to leave
shoulder.
Arizona, then
Yes.
on the other side of that.
Yes.
But it's been a journey. That transition through, all those different phases, it required us to basically understand that even within the state, there are transitions that you have to completely readapt to. My communication to new youth directors, one of the things I communicate early on is that you will make your life easier if you learn quickly to understand the personality of your administrative bishop. Learn quickly to know what his needs are, how he operates, how he functions, because what you have to do, and I worked for 7 administrative bishops in the 19 years that I served as a state director. 7 personalities, 7 leadership styles. In some places, like Arizona, I was received by the presiding bishop, and then I welcomed a new one in a couple of years later. But in each of those transition roles, I had to come in and understand that when a new one came in, whatever I was to the other one was out the window.
It changes.
And I would communicate, I'm here to serve you and your vision and help you achieve your goals. And so even within that same context of ministry, like youth and discipleship ministry, there's always, different dynamics at work.
I've always said you learn something from every single person.
Yeah.
And I can see that on the other side, And the hard times don't necessarily have to do with leaders, Hard times have to do with things that we're going through at the time or changes that we're experiencing and burdens that we're carrying. And for much of our state youth and discipleship work, I was a full-time educator in the public schools and at the high school level. And so, sometimes that added extra burdens. But we have been blessed, honestly, and every state administrative bishop that we have had has loved us and shown care for us and has shown care for our children. And we feel so blessed about that, and we honor them always.
We have some good leaders, and that's not just me talking there. That's absolutely the truth. You mentioned about your kids, and I love the fact of including them, allowing them to be real, to share. And it may be grieving, it may be crying. And sometimes, like Jeff kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, is that we don't allow our kids to have that space to just be open and vulnerable. And there's something that happens I'm guessing your kids probably didn't want to go. Oftentimes when you said, we're going to Arizona, they probably got a little bit of resistance, right?
Yeah, to Arizona, our boys are 7 years apart, so there was a little resistance from the older one. But here's the secret, and I tell our directors this as well. I believe the secret for me and Kathy and our boys embracing the work of God's call in our life, everywhere God placed us, we quickly made it home. I never enjoyed the initial first day in the new house because Kathy was on a tear to unpack every box
She's ready to get
hang every picture.
Yeah.
But she quickly, within 24 hours, that new home was familiar, visually familiar to our boys. And that was the first step. And then beyond that, we made it an adventure. We took them to every single place you could think of. We saw the Grand Canyon 9 times in 3 years. But we made every place home.
And when they were younger, they had no choice but to go with us. So we would make that Sunday afternoon, and whatever was near there, we would go there, and we would make memories, we would make experiences. But the other side to that is we plugged in to a local church so that our children had a community, because I know how important that was for me. And so as they grew older, oftentimes I stayed behind. And I just want to speak to the women out there. There's just sometimes where you might feel like, man, I wish I could always go with my husband. I wish I could always be here. I wish I could always travel with my husband or whatever. But when you have children, that is like such a sacred ministry. And it's just a season, and that season goes so quickly. And so there were times I didn't go with Brian because Brandon was so young, and he needed to be in his local church, and he needed to be involved in his discipleship opportunities, and he needed to be involved with his friends. So we didn't always go. So it was kind of like, it changed as the needs of our children changed. And I think looking back that they can value that. I've read things that they've written, even things that they've written in college, and I won't say for which professor, but looking back as they've kind of analyzed themselves, they just see the benefit of even though it was hard to transition, they see the strength that has come out of that and how flexible it's made them and given them the ability to make relationships quickly and to reinvent themselves if something happens and not to just let the whole world fall apart.
They're very adaptable.
And I've seen that in both of my boys, and I'm really proud of them for that.
Ministry will do that to you, become adaptable, won't it?
Yes,
You don't
it
have
does.
a choice. You mentioned the church and how important that was for your kids and the formation of that. Looking today, what do you think that the church can do to continue to be able to reach young people today, today's culture? Kind of give us an idea there of your thoughts on that.
I think that one of the most important things I've witnessed, and it's ironic to me that I am in the International Youth and Discipleship Department, but God has given me an aside ministry, and a lot of it has to do with these two factors, that we're in close proximity to Lee University. But the second factor is that a lot of these legacy students that are at Lee, sons and daughters, for me, it's the sons of my friends and other colleagues in ministry that we have met along the journey over the last 35 years. They are students at Lee, and because of that relationship, I could fill my calendar 7 days a week with coffee appointments and mentoring. And so that's a vital part of our ministry, but I'm just grateful that God has allowed that to happen in my life, because you know what it does for me? It fulfills the pastoral calling on my life.
Sure.
And I struggle with that. When you mentioned leaving pastoral ministry, I would say we were in Arizona 3 years, we were in Kentucky 9. I was still struggling with it 14 years later when I'm in Tennessee as a state director. It didn't help that certain people were calling me saying, I'm retiring. I feel like you're the man to come pastor the church. Until one day, Kathy said to me, I don't want to hear another conversation about pastoral ministry because you haven't prayed about it. And so I did. I listened to my boss. I went in and I prayed. And while I was praying about it, complaining, God spoke to me very clearly. And it changed the whole trajectory of my administrative ministry role. The Lord said, you can shepherd people from an administrative role. That's what the Lord spoke to my heart. You can shepherd people from an administrative role. And so out of that conversation with God, I began to ask God, well, then open my eyes to people who need shepherding. And the thing that happened was these Lee students began to reach out to me. Hey, can we grab coffee? So how the church, I feel, can help people is they can listen.
That's good.
Because that's what I do. We get coffee and I sit and I said, talk to me. What's happening in your world? And they begin to talk. And I think our students today want to be heard.
Yeah.
They have something to say, but they need people to listen. And God has equipped the church with a lot of wisdom and experience and biblical knowledge to invest in those students. But before you can invest anything, they have to know that you're listening. So I just sit and listen. And after I hear a lot of conversation, 35 years of ministry later, I am able just to share.
Yeah.
And it's just stories.
Yeah.
It's just examples of, how God has blessed our life, or how God has allowed us to experience his grace and his provision because we just trusted him in the moments that we couldn't see his hand at work.
I think the generations coming up today are just more hungry for the Holy Spirit than for anything superficial.
Yeah,
And
but-
I think the research probably says that. Am I correct, Dr.
Yes,
Sargent?
you're correct. Yeah.
They're asking, will you mentor me? They're actually saying that. So I've thought back to my childhood and my little home church in Kincaid, Illinois, and the pastor that I was saved under at 5 years old and who baptized me and who most of my family came to the Lord under, Delbert Rose. I remember Sunday nights them coming over to our house and a bunch of people from the church sitting there, and we would just be eating, and he would be actually discipling us and helping us mature in the Lord, helping our families mature in the Lord just from those relationships. And so I think that's still vital today, even on a large church scale. Just having those opportunities for discipleship with relationship. And it can be done well as we raise up leaders and put people into that role that we trust, that we know can help multiply disciples.
I love it.
Because that's how we get disciples. The sheep begat sheep.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be complicated.
No, it's very simple.
It's very simple.
It's a relaxed environment,
Yeah.
just listening and allowing them to talk.
That's difficult for a lot of our ministers to be relaxed,
Yeah.
right? We kind of get in this culture of anxiety, and it's hard for us to get out of it. So we're going to take a quick break and come back because I want to talk about marriage, ministry, kind of how do you balance that? Is it even possible to balance that? And then we're going to talk about the emotional and spiritual health. We'll be right back right after this.
If you would like to help support the Center for Ministerial Care continue its mission of serving those who so faithfully serve all of us, we encourage you to like us on Facebook, subscribe to this podcast, and share it with others. You can also visit our website at ministerialcare.com and click the donate button to make a contribution that directly benefits our services.
Welcome back to Pastoring on Purpose, and we're here with Brian and Kathy Yauns, and just really enjoying this conversation. Let's kind of shift a little bit more. You talked about parenting, transition, being able to kind of adapt. Let's kind of go into the word of boundaries now for just a moment. How do you two have boundaries in a family, whether it be you personally, your marriage, your kids? Because you serve in very public roles. People know who you are. In leadership, people are going to talk. That's just part of the process, I suppose. And how do you protect your family? How do you deal with those kind of things in your life for your marriage and for your kids?
Excuse me before you do it. Let me interject because just in case the listeners don't know, he's been elected to his current position. So there's
Right.
an added layer, I think.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
It's important to know there that when you're elected, you may feel a little different pressure, I assume, than one would if they're just appointed.
I would say early on when the kids were younger, I think the boundaries were much easier to define because we always looked at our kids' school schedules. We always looked at their activities, and we made sure to protect those things. And we made sure to plan vacations when we could plan vacations. But as the kids have moved along and to their own independent lives, and we've moved into this global role, I'd say it's a little more difficult. You want to say yes to everything,
Sure.
and Brian can speak a little bit more to that because he gets those calls often.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Definitely, Kathy.
Let's talk about boundaries.
She's ready to dive into it.
Early on, you're right. We made it a mandate to protect our boys and let them understand that, yes, God has a call on our lives, but we also have a family. And what Kathy said earlier on in the discussion was we always prayed that our boys would love the church. And after they had been through all these experiences, they wouldn't walk away from God or walk away from the church because they had horrible experiences. So we guarded that as they have left the home, and God has taken us into different positions. And especially as was stated in 2021 when I was elected, it's amazing to me that I served as the International Assistant Director, and I served 3 years in that role. But it's amazing that I'm in that role because people I don't even know put me there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never know all the people that voted and put me in that position. And so it is a little weightier in your mind. And yet at the same time, as honoring as that is and as thankful I am that God put us there, there's still the protection of my own personal identity and our identity as husband and wife. And let me just speak to one component of that, self-awareness and self-discipline. Just in my own personality in life, I think that a lot of ways God has helped us be successful is because we did set boundaries, but within those boundaries, we kind of had checklists of these are the things I'm going to do every day, non-negotiables in my life. And for me, I looked at the example before me, and not casting shade on anybody, it just is a visual assessment of ministry in the Church of God and how stress and schedules can cause people to fall into habits that maybe aren't as healthy as they should be. And so early on in my life, even into my teen years, I just was disciplined in certain things. And one of them was my health in these areas. I'm going to bed if you're at my house and you overstay your welcome.
He has done this.
I have actually, without saying a word, just left the room as though I've been going to the restroom, and I just go to bed. And to which she comes in and says, "Oh my goodness, you did not just leave me with our guests." And I said, "Well, I dropped 5 hints, but they never got any of them, and it was past my bedtime. So tomorrow I have a schedule that I have to keep."
He treasures his sleep.
I treasure my sleep because I know that if I don't get my sleep, I don't know what version of Brian Yon people are going to get the next day.
Sure.
And I need to be on. And with that comes just my personal health. Yeah. Every place we've lived, I've had a gym membership. What that does for me is it gives me a stress outlet. I go in there and I can look at a 45-pound steel plate and picture someone's face on it who has given me a hard time that day in ministry.
Yeah.
And I can press it out, and I can drop it on the floor and have all kind of thoughts. But for me, it's a stress relief. So those kind of disciplines consistently in life are very, very important. And with that come the spiritual disciplines. I remember Kathy Brad said this to me one day. Our oldest was going through a season in life like most teens do. And I began to question my parenting skills.
Yep.
And I said to him as he's going through this challenging state, "Son, I honestly don't know what I did wrong, because the behavior you're exhibiting is nothing like the example I led for you. And I don't even know if I was even a good dad to you." And he looked at me and he goes, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "One of the memories I'll treasure my whole life is waking up every morning and coming to the living room and seeing you in the recliner with your Bible, your journal, and your cup of coffee." He goes, "That is forever etched." But my point is, it's a discipline.
Yeah.
And those things become who you are. Yeah. When you do them enough, they just become, your second nature. And I think those things help keep us balanced in life.
They do. And we have always been super intentional with each other. We've always, even when our kids were little, we would take a vacation by ourselves and our kids would go to the grandparents. Yeah. maybe some people don't do that, but we chose to because we wanted to invest in each other, and we wanted to stay best friends, and we wanted to stay in love, and we wanted, when our children were gone and it's just the two of us, that we could just look at each other and say, "You're my best friend, and I love you so much. I love you more today than I did yesterday."
And make each other laugh.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. But anyway, it's a little harder at this level. I've stepped into a new role at Lee University, so we're on a little bit out of sync on our schedules, but we are still prioritizing balance. We're still blocking things off in our calendar. We're very intentional. We share our calendar. We block things off. Do not book time for each other, time with our families. And I just think that is so important because when you're gone, whatever your role is, whether it's a youth pastor or a pastor or an administrative bishop or an elected official, when you're gone, the next person comes and life moves on. So if you sacrifice all of those things at the expense of just doing, not necessarily the ministry and the calling, that's always there, but just doing all the things, and you sacrifice those other things, what does it benefit you at all? And the word tells us that.
Absolutely. In formation, I forgot who said this, but made the statement that formation, discipleship, it doesn't happen through the intensity. We need those services that are intense. God's really moving, and our kids are seeing that, and the Holy Spirit's at work. But it happens through repetition. It's your son coming down, the consistency coming down and seeing that. There's a certain sense of security that he finds in that. Like, this is home. That's Dad. Right. And it's etched in his brain. I love that. I also see oftentimes in counseling ministers coming with anxiety, panic attacks. It is amazing to me how often we don't recognize or even realize the warning signs that our body has given to us. God created us, right, and we have internal warning signs. Have you ever been in a moment in your all's life where you realize you just need to step back and do something different, kind of step away from the ministry for a little bit? I know you take time for each other, you go on vacation, but what is it that you like to do to kind of unwind, if you will? Do you have anything that you just really enjoy?
Yes, if you come by my office, international offices outside of my main office, it looks like Bass Pro Shop.
Okay.
People see me in a suit and tie, and they don't often know that, my story. I grew up with a great-granddad that had a very large farm in Georgia, and I lived on that farm in the summer, so grew up hunting, fishing, and so during deer season, my favorite place to be is in a deer stand, alone, quiet. And it's in that place of solitude that quite often God even speaks to me. I can't tell you how many sermons I've written in the notes on my phone, sitting in a deer stand waiting for some activity to happen. But again, those things are important, but the only way I get to do that is by being intentional with my calendar.
Sure.
And the interesting thing is, as long as we say yes to ministry opportunities, people will ask. People are going to ask. They always ask. And but I won't always be in fact, in July of 2028, the Church of God tells me I'm done with this role. And I'll transition again. But while I'm here in this role, although I will do the work of the ministry that God's called me to do, I will not forsake the boundaries that I've established all these years, because, there will come a day when I will not be in full-time ministry, and hopefully in that moment, I will be able to continue to do the things that I've always enjoyed doing.
Sure. Kathy, what about you? Anything in particular?
I was just thinking about what you talked about with marriage and stress and anxiety. And, we're like everybody else. It gets overwhelming sometimes. And I think what we've learned over 35 years that we didn't know early on is that we are giving each other signals, and then we're not picking up on those signals. And that's when, like, you can misinterpret where someone's at, and then, a spat can start, or, you can say something like, what's wrong with you today, or whatever. And I think that we've learned probably in the last, 15 years or so, I will just come and just say, I am super overwhelmed. If I'm short, if I speak to you like I normally don't speak, or it seems like I'm, sharp with you, please forgive me, point it out and just help me get through this moment. And he does the same to me. So we try to be open in conversation so that we can help each other. And it seems like we're never there at the same time. That's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
I don't know if that's how it is with everybody, but I'm just grateful that we're not.
Yeah.
Like when I've just had enough, he's there to say, oh, you can do this. You can push through this. You can do it. And then I'm able to encourage him when he's there. So thank God for that.
Yes.
And for his
By
grace.
the way, he hunts and fishes. He didn't say you were there. What do you do?
I don't hunt and fish.
What do you do?
Well, when we were in Arizona and he was going to take our boys to whatever the canyon was to sleep in the back of their
Oak
pickup
Creek
truck.
Canyon.
Oak Creek Canyon.
Sedona.
I said I would go. I did some research. I said I would go, but when we got there,
To my surprise.
I had him walk me to the Marriott Resort that was right
you
next
go.
door.
Yes.
So, no, I love time with my family. I love to go to the beach as a family.
But
I
you
love
for yourself, an
I love
individual.
to read. I need to finish my dissertation, which I'm not able to do right now. So that is
Okay.
weighing on me and hanging over my head. But my schedule right now is not allowing me to just have time to focus and write. I do enjoy shopping, not even buying things, just walking around and like in the warm sunshine and getting outside because we're inside a lot in our jobs. And I love the outside. I love to walk. And
She loves pedicures and manicures.
yes, I do. Yes, I'm a
And
girly
spa
girl.
days.
And
I'm
I
a
think
girly
that-
girl.
But I think that's good. No, it's good that he knows that. It's good
He
that
does.
you both know it, because I don't. And maybe in your relationship, it's similar to my wife and I. But she'll tell me sometimes I like to play racquetball, and sometimes she'll say, "Don't you want to go play racquetball?" Which is, you need to go play racquetball,
Exactly.
all right?
Yes, yes.
I need you to go play
I need you
racquetball,
to-
right? But that's knowing each other. That's being in sync,
is.
right? I know what the hobby that this person likes. I also know it's good for them, and I know it's good for our relationship when there's less stress in the relationship, or for an individual or for both of us. So
Right.
think
We,
what's-
we learned that fast too because
I
I,
was about
told
to
him.
say early on, I tried for a year to get her to go hunting and fishing with me. And one day she said, Brian, listen to me. This is for the rest of our marriage.
Yeah.
I will never go hunting with you
Okay.
because that's not who I am.
Yeah.
But I will never deny you the privilege of going. And so after that day, I never asked her again.
Yeah. Clear
And she's
communication.
never denied me the privilege.
Boundaries, right? I love it.
But it works. Communication works.
It really does.
it does.
It does. And you were talking about, Kathy, earlier how with you didn't say it in these words, but you kind of learn each other's body language over time.
Yeah.
And we communicate that way also. So
I'm going to interject one more time here, and on the behalf of a listener that I've imagined, all right? This all sounds nice and sweet, all right? But I'm doing my best in the ministry I'm in that God's called me to do, and I'm giving it everything I've got. And yet I'm hearing Brian say it's okay to say no. I have a hard time with that. I have a hard time saying no because I know God has called me to do this, and this is who I am, and this is the way me and my spouse, this is what we're supposed to be doing. But yet Brian, and I think Kathy agrees, is saying it's okay to say no. Help me with that. What advice would you give to me if that were my perspective?
Let me clarify what the no sounds like. The no sounds like a predetermined effort on my part to guard my calendar. So if you look in my calendar, you'll find a weekend that says Friday through Sunday, do not book. That means I have an appointment, and it's with my family. Nobody out there who's asking for a ministry a request of me to be with them needs to know or has to know, except that I'm already booked.
absolutely.
And so my communication isn't a no, I'm not going to come be with you. It's, I'm sorry, I'm already booked on that date.
Yeah.
But if we don't go through the steps and be intentional about guarding. So the reason those are in my calendar are because I go through my calendar a year in advance, and I calculate 4 to 5 weeks out, and about every 4th to 5th week, I put do not book, because I'm going to be home so I can be with my wife, so I can maybe go be with my grandkids and my son in Wisconsin, or just stay here in Cleveland with my other son.
And there's some times that gets adjusted. So we're also flexible with that, because we might get an invitation, and it's a very important invitation. It's like a historical moment, or for a church, or something that's really special to us with some people that maybe we used to pastor, or a wedding or something that we didn't expect. And we're flexible with that, but we don't forego the investment in ourselves. We just readjust our calendar. Yeah. And also, if we say that we should pray about things, we should pray about things. Mm-hmm. We should pray without ceasing. And that means before we always say yes, we should say, God, is this something that you would have me do right now? Is this something I should do? Is this something I should say yes to? I would say, if we really listen to God, there's sometimes he's going to say, no, not this time, or not yet. Mm. Right. And a denial, may just be a delay, right. But we do need to listen to the Lord and use wisdom.
So speaking about delays and not denials, I'll often get requests to preach a pastor appreciation for someone that we have been connected with in ministry, whether it's a former state youth board member or whatever. The irony for me is most pastor appreciations are not scheduled by the pastor. They're scheduled by a committee or someone, on the pastor's council, to which typically the date springs on them suddenly. And then I get a call. I've had a call as little as 3 weeks. Can you do our pastor appreciation 3 weeks from now? And I said, I'm sorry, but my calendar is booked a year in advance. So instead of saying, no, I don't want to do it, what I'll often say is, do you have your pastor appreciation in the same month every year? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always have it in October, or we have it in April. And I said, I would love to be able to come and honor my friend, your pastor, next October. Can we lock the date in now? Yeah. And so they'll absolutely.
Sure.
And so I'll lock a date in. So as Kathy said, a delay is not a denial always. It's just better planning.
That cannot be said any better. And so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with Brian and Kathy Yaun and Dr. Sargent with our closing segment. We'll be right back after this.
For more than 20 years, the Center for Ministerial Care has been a ministry for ministers. In addition to pastoral counseling, we provide restoration ministry for Church of God ministers in need of healing and renewal following personal and professional crisis, with a focus on respect without judgment of past mistakes. Ministerial Care also offers Spirit Care, a servant ministry focusing on creating a caring and kind community, helping retired Church of God ministers, their spouses, and widowed spouses. Visit ministerialcare.com to learn more.
Welcome back to Pastoring on Purpose, and I just want to get some final remarks from the both of you. And if there's one thing that you want to leave this episode, when you leave this episode and you want to say something to our ministers out there that are listening, maybe they're struggling right now, what's that one thing you'd want to leave them with?
A phrase that God spoke to me because I was struggling in the season of waiting for him to answer and to move. And in prayer, with a very heavy heart and a lot of emotions at work, the Lord quietly spoke to me and said, don't abort my plan because you're not patient in the process. And it was an overwhelming God moment for me in my ministry, in my life. And that is a message I have tried to communicate in any and every situation where someone is just waiting on God, or they're in this between state of, what, God, are you going to do in my life? How is this going to work out? And it was probably one of the most profound ministry moments in my life that has continued to affect me in regard to change. Don't abort God's plan because you're not patient in the process. So be patient in the process.
That's good. Takes a lot of faith, doesn't it?
A lot.
We make it sound like it's so easy. What about for you, Kathy?
I would just say, when we get in those moments, the enemy makes us feel like we're the only person there, or we're alone in that place, and we tend to wall ourselves off or be afraid to be transparent about our discouragement. So I would say, have someone in your life who is an accountability person, who is a friend, who's someone trusted, who you guys can have these conversations with. And when you're at that point of feeling very discouraged or very lost or very alone, or like you're not seeing the results that you would like to see, go to that person and pray with that person. Of course, praying to God, but also just having that person to agree with, where you two are touching something. So I think it's important to have authentic relationships so that you can talk through those kinds of times, with someone that you trust.
Love it. We're going to end this episode. I can't thank you two enough for being with us, for the work you do. We love and appreciate you both.
Thank you.
So thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
having
guys.
us.
Yeah, absolutely. And all I got is go Cats, right? So you can
Yes.
cut that out if you
Go
want to.
Cats.
Go Cats. So if you're listening right now and a pastor that's struggling right now, you're alone, please, I want to encourage you. Take advice what that has been said in this episode. Reach out. You're not alone. You don't have to go through life by yourself. You find a friend, find a colleague, find someone that you can confide in. You might even need counseling. You know what? That's okay. I think we follow after a great counselor. It's okay to get help. And so I want to encourage you out there, don't go through life alone. And for us, we love you. Please be willing to share our podcast. Hit the like button, as the kiddos like to say these days. For Jeff, for myself, for Brian and Kathy Yauns, and for our producer, Ryan, this has been Tim Manis at Pastoring on Purpose. We will see you next time. Until then, God bless.
You've been listening to Pastoring on Purpose, the official podcast of the Center for Ministerial Care. Join us next time as we continue our purposeful progress to becoming better pastors and better people.